Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the Two Ewes of Two Ewes Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at twoewesfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our Two Ewes Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Marsha.
How are you today?
I would be fine if I could cut off my head.
This is your yearly cold.
My
you get one
annual,
every
yes.
time this year, right?
My annual finals week cold, yes. Students have germs. I feel pretty good, except my nose is running, my eyes are running, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I probably sound congested, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get right to it.
Okay.
Projects.
Yes.
You want to go first?
I guess I could. I don't have all that much. Okay. I'm working right now on a pair of socks. This is the pair of socks. I'm using the Chris Loves Wool, Christy from In a Snip podcast, her pattern. Mm-hmm. It's called the Slip and Swirl Socks. Mm-hmm. And she sent me this pattern a while back when she first released it, I think. She sent me this pattern to try, and I'm really enjoying it. It's one of my favorite kinds of patterns to do, with just some slip stitches, and you just move the slip stitches around as you go. So it's coming out. I think I mentioned these socks before because they look kind of Aztec patterned because of the slip stitches. So I'm now on the second sock. The first sock is done. I finished it. We had to go to a memorial up near Marin, so just right outside of Marin, so north of San Francisco. So it was quite a long drive up there last weekend, I think. And then the drive back, someone else drove, so luckily I could knit there and back. So I finished the first sock on that trip. Now I'm on the second sock, and it's going really well. The yarn I'm using is Duran Dye Works, which I really like. Her sock yarn has a really kind of tight twist. Mm-hmm. You know how some sock yarns are sort of poofy? Mm-hmm. This one, her sock yarn is not. I'm untwisting it to make sure. It's like 4 plies, 3 plies. How many plies is it? It's 4 plies.
Okay.
And I think this is one of my favorite types of sock yarn. I do like the ones that are, soft and poofy, but I think I like a 4-ply, strong feeling sock yarn better. So that's what this is. It depends on your perspective. I was thinking of it as those Brock's candies, the color. I don't think the colorway has a name, or if it does, I don't know it. But it's got brown and yellow and pink.
Oh, right, yeah.
But someone else, but someone else said, it reminds them of chocolate donuts with sprinkles.
Oh, okay.
But it's a very food, this yarn is very evocative of food. Everybody who's looked at it has said candy or donuts.
Have you started a project page for it?
I think I have.
Will I see the yarn if I look at it?
I think, yes, I think so. I know I posted on Instagram when I was winding it into a cake, or I took it from the skein and into a cake, and then from the cake into 2 separate cakes, and it looked so pretty in the ball, especially as it was unwinding and the center was pulled out. It had all these really pretty loops of pink and yellow and brown. But I think it's on my...
looking.
No?
I don't see it.
I don't have them on my Ravelry page? Oh, huh.
I'm not seeing it. Oh, wait a minute.
No, you're right.
No, just a pair of socks. No.
Nope. They're not there. I didn't ever put them in. That's weird. Okay. I'll have to do that.
Something to do today.
Yeah, Aztec cupcakes.
Mostly I just wanted to see this food dyed yarn.
Yeah, it really does look like something you would eat. So that's what I'm working on right now while we talk. Mm-hmm. But the thing I've been working on is my Cowichan sweater.
Uh-huh.
I was going to start working on the sleeves and not do the collar because I wasn't sure what I was going to do in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got 2 different people suggesting to me that I do I-cord, like applied I-cord edging.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm going to do that. So I just went ahead and did the collar. And so that's done. And then I did one sleeve. And now I'm on the second sleeve. So I am really close to done with that sweater.
And remind me again, is this a raglan sleeve? Do you put the on a holder, or are they set-in sleeves?
They are, well, you pick up stitches, but they're set-in sleeve shape. So you pick up stitches and then do short rows for like the sleeve cap part.
Okay.
And then you join and you go down. Yeah, it's not raglan shaping at all. It's a more of a set-in, kind of a drop shoulder set-in sleeve.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's still smaller than I thought it was going to be. I put it on the other night over a sweater. I was wearing a turtleneck with a sweater over the top, or a mock turtleneck with a sweater over the top. And I put it on over the sweater, and I was like, this is a little tight. And Robert said, "You're never going to wear that over the top of a sweater." And I said, "You're probably right."
Well, yes, and especially, because this is going to be a very warm sweater.
Yeah. So I took off the sweater and tried it on over the top of just a regular, T-shirt, and it was fine. So, but it is smaller than I expected, and I think that has something to do with my idea of how much ease. Like, when you look at the pattern picture, the woman in the pattern does not look... Well, it's hard to tell, I guess, but for some reason, in my mind, she doesn't look that much bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
But she must be wearing a larger size because she has quite a bit of room between the 2 wales in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And the sweater is baggy. It has room in it.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just not a good judge of how much ease that is. Because I am a 34 and I'm making the size 40.
Oh my goodness.
So that's
a lot of ease, but you don't have that much?
No. I think because my gauge is a little tighter because of the color work.
Oh, okay.
Because I started making the first size, which is a 36.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like a 34 and a half, something like that. And I was making the 36. And then that was just too small. So now I'm making the 40, and it still feels like it could use a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But
do you think if you wash and block it, it will
probably
be fit differently?
I think a little bit. I don't know. I'll have to see. It's not too small. It's not like I won't wear it because it's too small. But I'm not quite... I don't quite know how much... what does 4 inches of ease look like? We've talked about this before.
Really?
I think I know what negative ease looks like, or zero ease looks like. But what does 4 inches of ease look like? What does 8 inches of ease look like? How does that translate to change in diameter or radius? I could do the math, but the idea of how big it feels, I don't really know. 6 inches of ease sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
But is it really? How much room is that inside your sweater? I have no idea.
Okay, what I always do is I just take the tape measure and put it around my bust at whatever.
Oh, yeah?
So my bust is 40. So if it says it's supposed to have, 4 inches of positive each, then I just put the tape measure at 44 and see how it feels.
Right, but you have to put it tight against your back and pull it out in the front, right? You can't just make the tape measure float.
Right, I know.
Levitating tape measure would be
so
nice.
what I do is I kind of hold it at that point, like, where the end is at 44.
Yeah.
And then I start sort of moving it around and feeling like, how does it, like, put my hands in back and feel it.
Yeah.
But you're right. Well, and also I think, depending on how the sweater is constructed, 4 to 6 inches of positive ease is going to be different with set-in sleeves than raglan sleeves, I think.
Probably,
just because of the nature of the construction, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that whole, I'm still not sure about the whole, sweater construction, how much ease you need, all of that kind of thing. For something like this where I wanted it to be big, I just wasn't sure how much. Mm-hmm. But I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it, but I think I would have been fine with it out of 44 too. Mm-hmm. That would have been 10 inches of ease.
Well, and because what are we talking about? What was the math you're doing at 40? It's like 6 inches of positive ease.
A little less.
I would think that would. Yeah. I think that would be plenty.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't know what.
I do think some of it has to do with the pulling in. The pulling in of. Well, of course, ribbing always pulls in. That's the point of it. Mm-hmm. So the ribbing's at the bottom. And then there's color work, 2 color work bands that pull it in a little. And it's not blocked, so it's still rolling in on the inside. And so it's hard to tell for sure. But anyway, I'm really pleased with how it's coming out. Like I said, I'm almost done with the second sleeve. So I've done a couple of modifications to the pattern. Well, actually, the pattern is not, it doesn't tell you everything. It's more it's more like, to me, it's kind of more like an old-fashioned pattern that doesn't, like, spoon-feed you everything you need to know. So you have to actually think. Like, here's an example. So the sleeves have a chart, when you're reading the sleeve directions, there's a chart, and it's the same design as the chart that you used around the waist. It's like a wave motif. And so I was looking at it, and normally you work a chart from the bottom up, right? And when I did the color work for the body, it was from the bottom up. But then I started thinking about it, and I thought, if I do this chart from the bottom up, the way the rows are listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're like numbered, my waves are going to be upside down. I mean, I had to sit there and think for a long time, like, okay, is that really true? Will these waves be upside down? Yeah, they'll be upside down. Okay, so then I went and looked at the pattern picture, and of course the waves are not upside down on the sleeves. Why would you do that? So clearly she means you to work the chart from the top of the chart down. But I reread the directions many, many times, and it never says that. But it's kind of obvious. If you're working charts and you're going from the bottom up, you're going to start at the bottom of the chart. If you're going from the top down, like on the sleeves, of course you would start at the top of the chart.
Right.
But it doesn't say that. So you have to you have to think.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing I did was on one sleeve, and I don't know that the pattern was really meant to do this. You can't see it in the pattern pictures. But on one sleeve, you have the waves going one way on the top of the sleeve, and then you have the wave motif again on the bottom of the sleeve going the other way. And I thought, you know what? I think on the other sleeve, I want it to be reversed.
Right, so the waves are crashing towards your body.
Right. So again, it took me a while of like doubting myself and thinking and rereading. Like, okay, there's only one set of instructions for the sleeves. Even though there's 2 sleeves, there's only one set of instructions. So you do it twice. And so, okay, I'm going to reverse the charts. So instead of doing, the left-facing waves first, on the second sleeve, I'm going to do the right-facing waves first, and then I'm going to do the left-facing waves second. But actually, you could do both sleeves the same because I think it was set up to match the the wave motifs on the body. Because on the body of the sweater, the waves are going one way at the top and the other way at the bottom.
Okay.
So that might have just been my own little thing that, I think I want my sleeves to be mirror imaged.
Mm-hmm. But now when you have your arms down at the side of your body, is the body of the sweater and one sleeve, the waves are going to be going the same direction.
Yes.
And the other arm, they're going to be going the opposite direction.
Yes. But they don't all line up.
Okay.
So it's not like a sweater where you have stripes that line up on the body and the sleeve. It's not like that. So they don't really line up. So yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. But
Kelly, this is making my head hurt. Trying to visualize this.
I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did.
And I'm not even doing it. Imagine what you were going through. Yeah.
The other thing was on the collar. I had a little bit of problem with the directions because the edge turned out really nice on the left collar. The collar construction is really a cool construction. But as I was doing the collar, on the one side of the collar, you slip a certain way, and it made a really nice edge. And so then on the other side of the collar, the way the instructions told you to slip was not making the same edge. Mm-hmm. So again, it was like, what am I doing wrong? I don't know, but I'm going to go back and do it the way the other collar said, and that worked out fine. So that one might have been user error, but I just did the same slipping on both collars because I got the same edge. So it's not a pattern for somebody who wants every single little detail to be told to them. Mm-hmm. And like you have to do decreases within your chart, color work chart. Mm. So you have to look at your color work and say, all right, here's gray and white, and the white's supposed to be going on a diagonal. So even though now I have one less stitch, I have to do it so it matches the one below, the row below. I don't know. Right. That's making it sound more complicated than it really was. But you have to read your knitting and not just blindly follow, because while you're working in pattern, you have to also decrease. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like the chart has 9-stitch repeat. Okay, good. But when you take off one stitch at the beginning, right, as you're decreasing, now you have to make that same pattern show up, but you don't have 9 stitches.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Okay.
So there's a lot of interpretation and thinking. You just can't blindly knit,
there's
right?
You
have to...
Yes. As we say in the education business, there's critical thinking involved. Yes. You don't just put all the ingredients together like a recipe. There is definitely some critical thinking involved. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I like it. It's really nice. And there's some great techniques in the pattern. Mm-hmm. There's a really cool 3-needle bind off that gives you like a lateral braid coming down your shoulder. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really nice detail. The collar was really interesting construction. Yeah. So I recommend the pattern.
Okay. I think my sweater that I have that I bought years ago, I think it's got that braid going down the... There's there's a line of stitches going down the shoulder. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that must be the same. Yeah. The same thing you're talking about.
I mean, it's supposedly a pattern in the traditional way. Mm-hmm. Although there are many traditions in reading the Priscilla, I think it's Priscilla Gibson. No, Sylvia Olsen book. The book that I'm reading has, there are many traditions. It's not just one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I am. I'm not working on a lot of really interesting things. Oh, I did do some preparation for weaving. We can talk about that a little bit later.
Okay. So is that it for projects?
Yeah, that's my sole. I've been very monogamous on this sweater. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I want it for our Christmas camping trip.
You have... How many days do you have?
A little over, just like, the day we're recording this, I have like one day more than a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by the time this goes live, I will have less than a week.
Yeah. You'll be putting the zipper in the truck.
I might have to wear it without a zipper.
Yeah.
I'll just bring my shawl pin to hold it together. Probably won't matter.
Well, no, I was going to say is you're going to have to allow some time for it to dry. After you wash and block it for it to dry because
that's true.
What was the sweat? Oh, my Recoleta with that neighborhood fiber company yarn that took a long time to dry. I was surprised because it's so kind of dense. I guess that yarn, So yeah, you'll have to allow time for it to dry. Anyway, okay, well, I'll just my project. So I have 2 completed projects. Woohoo!
Yay!
So the first one is I finished my shawl, Among the Shadows, the Kelene Kinnersly that I've been working on for a while now because it ended up pretty good size because I used 3 skeins of the shepherd's wool crazy. So anyway, that's done. And I've been wearing it. In fact, I have it on right now. And then my other project that I finished was my combo spin pullover.
Oh, yeah.
The Beeline. And I have that on right now, too. So I just want to talk a little bit about the pattern.
Okay.
Well, first my first thing I have to say about the yarn, it was fabulous yarn. It was really nice to knit with. And I have to say, I did a pretty good job. I'm getting better with my spinning, so I think I mentioned this before, but I did a pretty good job of keeping it pretty even. And then even those spots that it wasn't very even, when the project's done, you can't see them at all. It all blends in together. But the first thing I just want to say about the pattern, it's a great pattern. It's called Beeline by Heidi Kirrmaier. And you were just I was sort of laughing when you were talking about your the Cowichan sweater that you're making, that you have to do some interpretation. This pattern, you don't have to do any interpretation. It's a very well written pattern, so much so that this pattern has a one of those false side seams that goes down. So it's all stockinette, and there's this one line of purl stitches that goes down the body of the sweater. And she's done such a good job with this pattern and detailing the pattern that you end up having a purl stitch in your ribbing right where that line is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so because you have to count your stitches to see how many, make sure you have the right number. And if you, I can't remember now how it is because I don't have the pattern in front of me, but if you have an odd number of stitches, you start with a knit. If you have an even number of stitches, you start with a purl. So that you'll end up with that purl on the ribbing lining up with that purl on that false side seam. So nice, very nice pattern. So it fits really well, but I did make a couple modifications. The pattern is designed to have decreases all down the body, and so that it gets narrower towards the hips. And I decided I didn't want that. I wanted the shaping to go in and then back out again.
Right. That seems odd to have the shaping go just in.
Yeah. So I put in waist shaping, and Kelly, you and I had a discussion about this on the phone to figure out where they should go. But basically, I just did 2 decreases on that side seam twice. So that was like a total of 8 stitches. Is that right? Yeah. A group 2 and 2 on each side, and another 2 and 2 on each side. Knitted some about 2 inches or so, and then I just reversed that and did increases. So that's what I did. And then, but the neckline, one of the things I liked about the sweater is it does have a more open neck, because I thought for a pullover it'd be nice to have that more open neck so I won't get so hot. And as you pointed out, it'll be easy when I do get hot, it'll be easier to pull it over my head.
You can quickly rip the sweater off.
Yes. And so the instructions say to go down a needle size. So the body was in 7, so the neck then would be in 6s. And so I knit that, and then I bound off with that stretchy bind off that very
surprisingly
pink
very pink, yeah.
And I don't know, is it surprisingly stretchy or very stretchy or super stretchy? But anyway, I did that, and I don't know if it was because I did that bind off or the needles were. I did a smaller size needles because it was so open that it was sort of slipping off my shoulders. So I ripped it out and I reknit it on size 5. And then I just did a regular, I don't know what you call that. I'd say a regular bind off where you just,
knit 2,
slip it
pull
over.
1 over. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really tightened it up. It was also sort of gaping, like there was these, it didn't lay flat. And I think with the smaller needles and then just a regular bind off, it sort of pulled everything in a little bit. I also added about 2 more rows of knitting in that, in the ribbing around the neck, just to make it a little bit. It turned out really well. It's very comfortable. But when I made the pattern, what patterns always tell you to, you do the body, then you do the sleeves, then you go back and you do the neckline. And Knitty Barb from the 2 Knit Lit Chicks commented in the discussion thread that she doesn't know why she's commented on this before, and why patterns tell you to do that, because once you put the neckline in, it actually changes the length of your sleeves.
Yeah.
It can. So it makes more sense to do your neckline and then, at least finish your sleeves after. You can maybe knit most of the sleeve, but finish them after you finish the neckline. And I'm going to tell her that it is true, because I had finished my sleeves and they seemed to fit fine. And when I redid the neckline, they were then a little too short. So I had to rip out the sleeves, the cuffs, and lengthen them by about 3 rows. Yeah. So that's a good tip. Even though about just thinking about a pattern is, even though the instructions say do the sleeves and finish them, I think it really makes more sense to do the neckline before you finish the sleeves. Or at least knit them down to the cuffs before you actually bind them off to see.
Yeah, because if the length matters to you, you won't know the true length until your neckline is right. Yeah. That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. And it made a significant difference in the length.
Right, more than just a couple rows, yeah.
It was, a good 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. It was significant.
Yeah.
It was,
that's interesting.
Anyway, but I've been wearing the sweater and I love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, and since I'm talking about the sweater, I also just want to talk that I started my second combo spin. And I talked about this before, but this one I decided to try and do sort of similar colors, but different fibers. And I bought braids at Fiber Fusion a couple months ago, and I talked all about that. But anyway, I've actually started spinning it. I have 2 skeins done, and I have a couple comments. One is that the silk in it is going to be really nice. It adds this kind of luster or sheen to it, and it seems what's the word I want? I guess luster. So it has a shininess to it, kind of.
I like that about silk.
So that's really nice, and it's interesting too, because when you ply it, you can't control when the straight silk is going to meet. Merino, or if it's going to be all 3, because I'm doing a 3-ply, all 3 plies, in a couple cases ended up being all silk. So that's kind of, because you can't control what fiber is going to end up on what fiber, right?
Right, because you're not spinning a braid that's 100% silk. You're spinning a braid that's a blend, right?
Well, I'm spinning. I spun. There's one of the braids was a blend, like 50-50 silk merino. There's another one that was just straight silk.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm saying is, when you take that braid and you break it apart into those 4-inch pieces, at a certain point you're spinning 100% silk.
I see. Yes.
And so when you ply them, sometimes it might be silk with targhee and merino, or it might be silk and
merino silk,
Polworth, or Polworth, or it could be all 3 are silk.
Okay.
But it only goes for a short period of time, right? Yeah. It's not.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe a yard, maybe a yard is the most. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this knits up. So, but then the other thing I want to say is funny is I thought, okay, the first one I just used all these different colors, same fiber, all different colors. This time I'm going to try and do different fibers, but all similar colors. I want to do sort of fall, orangey browns, reds. So all of the colors that I picked were everything from a very, very deep purple that it's almost black, to then red and orange and like burgundy, and then it get like Aztec gold, a pumpkin color thing. And then I had another braid that went all the way from like yellow into moss green kind of.
Uh-huh.
And then I thought, well, I just want a little bit of, and then I also had some roving that I dyed black and charcoal. I just put it in the dye pot and just put black dye on it and so it got kind of mottled quite black and gray, charcoal gray. And then I also decided I want something, just one little thing that contrasted. So I got a bright turquoise, just a little bit of this turquoisey, a little bit of bright blue. But it's interesting now that I've spun it up, it looks just like my first combo. Except, I mean, it's different because it's more brown and earthy kind of than where the one I have on reminds me a little bit of, you're talking about candy. This sort of looks like Brock's candy a little bit, because there's hot pink in there and yellow and blue, baby blue kind of everything. But this one just looks like the same thing, but a darker version of it. And so then I was laughing because I went and I started looking at other people's combo spins, and they kind of all look the same, really. I think the only way, and I'm kind of curious now, is the one way to make it look more uniform is you have to truly just get reds, truly just get greens. Don't put any contrasting complementary color in there.
Well, Marsha, it doesn't matter what kitchen scraps or yard waste you put in. Once it's compost, it all looks the same.
Yes. So this is my compost bin number 2. So
interesting. Well, what would be fun is for you to, well, you don't have a skein left, but take it like a picture of the skein and put it next to, like, in your photos, you must have a picture of your other skein.
I do.
And put them side by side. Do one of those, one of those things you could do on Instagram where you put the skeins side by side. It's like put them side by side. Maybe we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
That comparison shot.
Yeah. But it really is, but it still is addictive, I have to say, just spinning this.
Well, I have a whole bag of Lincoln and that I got from Janai. When she came to the fleece auction, she brought me this bag of gray Lincoln that she'd had. And, Lincoln's a long wool and it's not going to make a sweater. And I think she had gotten it. She won a spinning wheel at Retzlaff Winery last year or 2 years ago. And I think it came with that. It came with the spinning wheel that she won. Anyway, she spun a little bit of it, and then, it wasn't something that she was going to use, and so she asked me if I wanted it. I said, sure, because I love those long wools. So I have a bag of this sort of silvery gray long wool, and I thought that would be a fun thing to do a combo spin with. And, just do the overdyed gray combo spin. If I do that, it'll be interesting to see if mine looks the same as yours. We can do a family portrait with all the combo spins all together and be like, oh, yeah, I see the family resemblance of all those skeins of yarn.
Well, I have to say now I am tempted to go and do another one, either buy braids or just dye my own, but just make them all like red and orange and yellow or something and see. And don't throw in any complementary color, just to see what will happen. Although I do think that putting in something else makes it interesting. I think it makes it interesting, but I'm also just interested to find out what's the color, what color combination do you need to use where you make them look completely different so it's not just always looks like compost. I have to laugh too because I'm looking here at the discussion thread and I actually had commented here. RT Meow had asked about how I selected colors, and I wrote this whole thing about how I did it and everything. And then I thought, well, that's all ridiculous because that's true. I mean, it's true how I did it, but it doesn't make any difference.
It didn't matter.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
You can select colors however you want, and it will come out fine.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just kind of funny this. But anyway, I'm kind of interested to see how. I will say about the combo spin. It looked one way as singles. It looked another way. I mean, the first one I did one way as singles, another way plied, another way in the skein, another way in the cake, and another way knit up.
Yeah. That transformation is what's so appealing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what I love about spinning anyway. Is that every stage is different than what you had before.
Yeah.
But that is really appealing.
I know. And the other thing I forgot, one last thing I wanted to say about the sweater and the combo spin is I just used one ball of yarn for the body. But when I did the sleeves, I alternated skeins.
Oh, right.
And I just wanted to share that with people to make it look, because if you think about it, the body's just a cylinder and the sleeves are 2 cylinders, but smaller.
Different sizes.
Cylinders. So it was beginning to make larger stripes. So I did alternate.
That's smart.
Yeah. So anyway, and then the other project I'm working on, I'll say about the Beeline. I will say, even if you aren't using a combo spin, that Beeline is a great pattern. Really nice pattern. Fits really well. But the other project I started is when I went to Vogue Knitting, Youthful Fiber Farm and Mill had a booth there, and I bought some of her yarn. And she's Kim, and she's down in Halsey, Oregon. And I bought a skein for myself, and I bought you a skein, Kelly, which I think you've got already.
Yes, I did. Oh, it's lovely.
It's a Rommeldale CVM, and I'm making a hat for Ben. I'm just making I'm making up the pattern, which is basically, I just measured his head and did my gauge and cast on. So I'm just making a hat for him. Very nice yarn, and I'm really enjoying knitting with it. And it's it's the natural color, and it's this beautiful. That color that you like, is it gray or is it brown? You can't really decide.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I'm knitting on right now. So that's it for projects for me.
Okay. Well, Marsha, now that we're finished with our project updates, I do have something that I want to insert into our episode. Emily Straw, Butterfly M, she's had the Knitting Butterflies podcast for a while. Mm-hmm. She's now shifting her podcast focus, and she's going to be coming out with a new podcast, new branding, I guess you could call it, for a podcast called Tightly Spun. And so she sent us a promo, and I'm going to go ahead and put the promo into the episode now so everyone can hear about Emily's new podcast that's coming up.
Hey knitters, my name is Emily, and I am so excited to tell you about a new podcast coming out on January 1st. It's called Tightly Spun, and it's designed to celebrate you, the everyday knitter. Each episode will feature an interview of a fiber artist from a different part of the world. Together, we're going to paint a picture for you of how the fiber arts fit into the lives of everyday people. We'll discuss favorite projects, our favorite and least favorite techniques, other hobbies that bring us joy, and so much more. We'll also help bring you new ideas to spread the warmth to your community through charity crafting. Every knitter has a story, from the person who just learned how to knit for the holidays this year to the master knitter. Tightly Spun will share all of these stories and everything in between. You can even apply to share your story by visiting tightlyspun.com and clicking on Participate. Episodes of Tightly Spun will be found on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play on January 1st. We'll see you then.
Well, Kelly, the other thing that we want to talk about, though, is our meetup that we're having in January. And we're now having 2 meetups.
Yes.
We had a little bit of conflict for the date that we had picked. There's also the St. Distaff Day spin-in, so we changed the date. We're going to have 2 meetups now. So let me just go over the dates. So January 6th, it's a Saturday, we're going to have a meetup at the St. Distaff Day Spin-In, which is held at the Evergreen State Fairgrounds in Monroe, Washington. And that's from 10 to 4. And I looked it up online, and it says it's held in the if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Weikel Event Center, and that's Weikel. And so we will be there. We'll try to make ourselves visible. And if you want to try and find us, there or contact us before you go. You can contact us at our email address, which is 2ewes@2ewesfiberadventures.com, or you can message either Kelly or myself on Ravelry. And then the next day, Sunday, January 7th, we are going to have another meetup at 1 o'clock at the house. And again, message us for the details of the address of the house and about parking. And so that's how you can contact us.
Let me just insert here about the meetup on Saturday. Mm-hmm. If you get in touch with us, I'll give you my phone number, and then you can text during the event to say, we can't find you. Where are you?
Yes. Yeah.
Because Marsha and I are not really familiar with that event center. You've been to the event before, right? But it was somewhere else.
I've been to it. I'm not exactly sure where this room is or this building is at the fairgrounds. And also I've only been to the spin-in once before, and there were a lot of people. I'm going to say 200 spinners, a lot.
Okay.
So we're going to have to make ourselves visible. And again, if you can't find us, message us prior to the that date so we can give you one of our phone numbers and you can text us.
Right.
Yeah. And I should say, too, that there also is a marketplace at the the spin-in. And they, as I recall, there were braids, fiber, spinning wheels, there was yarn, all kinds of equipment for spinning. And also, the other thing too, door prizes. They had a ton of door prizes. Now this is 3 years ago that I went, but really, really good door prizes. So,
okay. Well, I'm really glad that I found out from some of our listeners that this was happening on that Saturday because I'm excited to go to it.
Yeah, I know. We didn't want to miss it either.
Right.
There were some comments in the discussion thread, like they didn't want to have to choose. Well, we didn't want to have to choose either. So I'm glad they made us aware of that. I appreciate that.
We didn't think about it even. So cool.
On Sunday, the meetup that we're calling it our Crafternoon. We're still finalizing the details, but we're going to have some fun things going on. The one thing we are going to do is have a spirit yarn table. So if you have yarn, spirit yarn that needs to go live with someone else, and so it can reach its
true purpose.
Find its true purpose and reach its full potential.
Yes, exactly.
Bring it along, and we'll have a table set up where you can drop that off and take whatever you want. It doesn't have to just be yarn; it can be fiber, patterns, needles.
Yeah, supply, whatever kind of knitting,
supplies,
crochet,
project bags that you no longer need. Also, you're more than welcome to bring finished projects too, things that you no longer want, or if you've made way too many hats for your friends and they're just like, and your family, and they're like, please, not another hat, not another shawl, please. Bring them along and put them at the spirit table, and they can find a good home.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So, and then we'll have some other surprises too that we're working on.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So,
that'll be fun. Sit around and knit.
Yeah. Oh, and I should say too, we are going to be, we'll have some refreshments there, but if you do want to bring something to share, you're more than welcome to bring some food if you'd like. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, we'll have some refreshments. So, I think that's it for the meetup. Anything else we need to say?
Just to repeat, it's on Sunday, January 7th at 1 o'clock, and you can get in contact with Marsha and I for details about exactly where, the location.
Yeah. And we'll put some of this information in the show notes, probably in the discussion thread. And then also, we did find a link with information about the spin-in, the Saint Estèphe Day spin-in, and so we'll put a link in the show notes to that website.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of information in there, but it does have some information, date, time, location. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to an opportunity to meet all of the Seattle area spinners, knitters, fiber adventurers.
Fiber folk.
Fiber folk, yes. It'll be fun, fun.
Anyway. Okay. So our next thing we want to talk about, though. Weaving.
Yes, weaving. So Marsha and I were having a discussion about her yarn choice last time. And so she'll tell you a little bit about what she has going on there. But as we were getting ready for the episode, I said to her, so do you have the reed? Can you count and see how many dents per inch you have so we can, know a little bit better about the yarn choices that will work? Because the reed is the part of the table loom that the threads come through that reed. It's little slots. And so the slots, you want the yarn and the slots to have a kind of a matching, size, right? You don't want to put really thick yarn through little skinny slots so that it will be rubbing the whole time, and that will make the yarn break. So I was asking her about the reed, and if she could count, they're called dents, the little slots, how many dents per inch she had, and turns out she doesn't have a reed at all.
And how long have I had this loom? You sent it to me 10 years ago? 15 years ago, probably.
No, it was about 10.
10. Yeah. Anyway, I've had it in the closet. And I know all the parts are with it. I mean, all I had was the loom and then the shuttle.
Right.
Is that what you call it? The shuttle? That's all I've had. And so I think we think that it got sent up without the
reed,
part.
Yes.
Without the reed.
So I'm going to have to look through my stash and see if I have it. And I think I probably do. I think probably it got packed up just without the reed. So I'll go hunting around and see if I can find one that's appropriate for your yarn choice.
But while we're talking about the reed, let me just ask you, is the purpose of the reed just to keep the yarn organized, or the warp? Is that right?
Yeah,
is that
the warp.
Right, to keep that organized, or what is the purpose of that?
The other thing that it does, so it keeps them all lined up, but it also, the reed is on the part of the loom called the beater, which is the part that you pull forward to pack the weft threads down into the warp.
Right.
And so it holds the threads all in line while you pull and push that weft thread into your woven fabric.
Okay.
Yeah. So you do need it.
I need it, yeah.
In a rigid heddle loom, it's part of the heddle. It's part of the rigid heddle. The rigid heddle loom has like a dual purpose. Beater, reed, and heddles all in the same piece of the loom. But in a table loom, there's heddles that are separate. Those are the things you lift up and down. And then the reed is a separate piece. So we'll have to get you fixed up with an appropriate size of reed.
Yeah, before we started recording, we were actually looking online too, that I could, if you don't have it, and I'm going to look again through my closet where I had this stored. If I don't have it, we can just order one online.
Right. The Woolery is the place that I know of that has a really good variety of weaving supplies. And I think Webb's too has quite a few weaving supplies. So those two places are good sources for weaving equipment. So we'll see. So what yarn do you have, Marsha?
Well, I'm going to have to come clean and just say something too about my my yarn. I went through my stash and I pulled out stuff, and I'm shocked. It fills up a black Glad trash bag. I have that much stuff
that you might use for weaving.
I might use for weaving, and I think this is how I also got the idea of having the spirit yarn table. Is I think it might be time for me to get rid of some of this stuff. If I don't use it for weaving, it will go onto the table. But anyway, I have a lot of worsted weight. There's some handspun there's two handspuns that I picked up at the de-stash table at Knockers. That because they were handspun, I had to take them. I have a little bit of lace weight in there. I have some fuzzy stuff, something that is like mohair.
Okay, yeah. More suitable for weft yarn than warp, but still it would be interesting to use.
And so I guess my question I wanted to ask you is, for the warp, does it all have to be the same? So, for example, if I'm going to use worsted weight, does my warp all have to be worsted weight?
It doesn't. Most of the time people do that. They keep to kind of the same, the same thickness. It makes it easier to see how the texture of the, whatever the weave structure that you're weaving, it makes it easier to see what the texture would be like. So I would probably suggest for this project that you do that.
Okay.
And I think, there's a couple of choices of project, like a small rectangle to go in the center of a table. We talked about that last time, right? Not like a full table runner, but something small.
Right.
The other possibility, the other thing I was thinking is a nice choice if people are going to weave along on this, if there's another beginner who wants to kind of follow along with Marsha's project. And that's making separate pieces. Like you put on one warp, but you'd put spacers in between and you'd make like pot holder or hot pad size. And then you have some sewing to do at the end because I would think you'd want to put a back on it. But I made some really nice pot holders, woven pot holders that I've sewed up, put on a back and put some stuffing in the middle. So that's another option. A wall hanging is another choice. Something that's not going to be very, very large. So you don't have to spend a long time getting the warp ready. And then also you don't have to weave for miles of warp before you get the satisfaction of taking off the loom and seeing what it looks like.
Okay. And so I should probably do all worsted weight or whatever weight I have that I have enough of to do the
I would say that's probably the best.
Warping.
Yeah.
But I can use different colors, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I can do bands of color or whatever.
Yeah, you have some choices. You could do stripes of color, like bands of color. You could do single threads of each color if you wanted to, and do a more blended approach. Yeah, it's kind of up to you.
Okay.
One of the things that people also do is something called a gamp, which is really another word for sampler in a way. So you could do like color bands in the warp. So let's say you did red, blue, green, orange, yellow, something like that. I mean, it could be like the rainbow, or it could just be some colors that you like. And then you take those same colors and maybe other colors for the weft. So you see what it looks like when your warp and weft are the same color. Or you'll see what it looks like when your warp is red and your weft is blue. And you'll get to see all the different color combinations that happen in the weaving and what that kind of does. Okay. So that's called a gamp, and it's a good idea. It's a good way to see in your weaving the interplay of colors, because you have a lot more choices of color play in weaving than you do in knitting. Right? In knitting you have stripes.
Right.
Or you could do fair isle.
But the color, like if you have red and white stripes in knitting, you have red and white stripes.
Right.
In the weaving, where the red and white weave, it'll be pink, right?
It might be.
I mean, from a distance, it'll look that way.
Yeah,
right?
it'll
blend the colors.
That's right.
Somewhat.
You get a lot more optical blending with the colors and different weave structures. Different ways that the warp and weft threads interact will make the two colors look different together. And so that's an interesting thing too. Like you might decide to do 3 or 4 warp colors and then, use those same weft colors in one weave structure. And then change weave structures and do the same thing again, but with a different weave structure. So you can see how it affects it. Do it like an experiment. I was very resistant to this experimentation just for the sake of experimentation when I was a new weaver. I wanted to make something. I didn't want to just make a sampler just to put in my drawer.
you know me well because that's how I am.
Yeah,
I want to be able to use it.
Yeah, I don't want to have something to put in a drawer that then I will look at it and say, oh, okay, so this is what happens when I do this and this with these yarns. So I actually made a wall hanging with all the different weave structures going up it and used a lot of my handspun and so I didn't get the same ability to see how a wide variety of yarns interplayed, but I did get to see the weave structures and how those weave structures looked and which ones I liked and all of that. So that was good. And then I had something that I liked. I had it on the wall for a long time. So, I was trying to think of some other things, like you can make fabric to make a bag. You can make fabric to make those pot holders or hot pads. You can make that rectangle that goes in the center of your table, that kind of thing. You have some choices.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So yeah, I'm excited about this next phase, and I think just given the time of year right now, it's realistic to think that you'll be starting this project while I'm there visiting. Yeah,
I think I don't think realistically I'm going to start it before December 25th.
Right.
So
yeah, that will work out perfectly.
Yeah. And hopefully while you're up here and we're working on it, we can do a little recording.
Yeah, and we maybe can even do a little bit of video. My original plan for this weave along was to have a few little videos to put up also, so maybe we can do that. I'm not that great with videoing myself. I tried it. I have a little tripod, but I was not very successful, so I haven't been able to do that yet, but that should be fun, yeah. So,
okay.
And then meanwhile, I actually warped for a weaving project. I got out some of the red and green yarn that I have and put together a warp for dish towels, my sort of standard 6 dish towel length warp that I have. I have notes in my, I have a little notebook, and in my notebook I've already done the calculations for how many yards I need to put to make 6 dish towels. So I did a warp, and I did red and green, because I have 2 different reds and 2 different greens in my stash, and so I put it on red and green cotton. These are not going to be Christmas presents or anything. I really doubt I would be able to get anything done between now and Christmas.
Yeah. You've got that sweater to finish.
I have that sweater to finish. That is exactly right. But I'm hoping to be able to put this weaving project on my big loom, even though it's not wide. It won't be a wide project. It'll be a nice first project to break in the big Macomber loom that I have. So, and then I found, this is kind of fun, the book I use. There's a book I use by Marguerite Davidson, and I think it's called A Hand Weaver's Pattern Book. I always just call it the Green Book, the Davidson Green Book. But it has page after page after page of weave structures.
Okay.
And so then it has the drafts that tell you how to thread the warp for each of those weave structures, and then it also has, how do you treadle for each of those weave structures, and they're all 4 harness weave structures. So your table loom, my floor loom, the looms with only 4 shafts or 4 harnesses, they're set up for that. If you have a rigid heddle loom, you have to use, I think you have to use pickup sticks to do something that takes 4 shafts. 4 harnesses. There's just an entire book full of different weave structures. And I discovered there's a group on Ravelry that does, it's called the Marguerite P. Davidson in Color. They do a year-long weave along where they select chapters from that book randomly. And then from the chapters, people select structures that they're interested in. And then the moderator goes through all of that and somehow selects, I don't know if it's randomly or by vote or what, but selects the weave structures that they're going to be playing with for that year. I'm really excited to do that. I think it would be really fun. It'll get me out of my comfort zone because mostly when I use the Davidson book, I use one of the early chapters, the twill chapters, because that's what I'm most familiar with. It's an easier threading. It's something I'm more knowledgeable about. I know how to catch mistakes better in twill. And so I just kind of gravitate to those. But there's the whole rest of the book that I haven't touched in terms of structures. And so this will give me some incentive to try some of the other chapters, because none of the chapters that are in this weave along that have been selected are the early chapters of the book. They're all chapters I haven't touched. So, yeah, so that'll be fun.
It's an adventure. It really is.
It really is. And so I think my dish towels will be in, it's called Swiss Twill is the pattern that I'm using. But I am going to get another project onto one of the looms and do some kind of sampler. So I'm excited about that for myself.
Yeah, that'll be really fun.
Yeah, a little learning adventure for me. Stretch myself a little bit in the weaving area. So I've already put a link to that in the Winter Weave Along thread in Ravelry. So if you can't find that group, you can go look in that Winter Weave Along thread and you'll find the link to the Marguerite P. Davidson Weave Along group.
Okay.
So, and I highly recommend that book. I have, like I said, the green one is the hardback version of the Marguerite P. Davidson book. There's also a paperback version that I guess is red that I saw when I went on Amazon. But that was the textbook for my weaving class, and it's excellent. It doesn't have a lot of weaving instruction. It has drafts. So it's kind of like a stitch dictionary in a way to relate it to something in knitting. You know, it doesn't have patterns in it like a stitch dictionary isn't like you're not going to find a sweater pattern.
Right. It's just all the different stitches. So this is just,
It's like that. And I don't use patterns a lot in my weaving. I have used a few, but it's not common for me to find a weaving pattern and use the pattern. It's more common for me to do the calculation for what length I want of warp, whatever my project is, and then to go to the Davidson book and find the weave structure that I want to use. So
it's like a shopping catalog. Shop for your weave structure.
It is. It's fun. Yeah. So anyway, that's the weaving news. One of the things I did want to thank everyone who came and supported the shop with our Shop Small promo code and got free shipping. That was great. It was a lot of fun. I really want to thank people for supporting the podcast.
Yeah, it was very nice. And now we just want to see what they make. People haven't posted pictures of what they've made, but keep posting pictures because that's really satisfying to see what is made.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it feels really good to see what's made out of the yarn.
It is really fun, yeah. So it feels like we're kind of getting closer to our goal of being able to connect shepherds who have sheep, and they know that their sheep have wool that people would want, but they don't know how to get that wool to people who knit. And so we're getting closer to that goal, I think. So we do have some still some things in the shop, and I am going to be putting in some natural colored fleece portions. Right now I just have one of my white fleeces that I have fleece portions set up, but I have some gray and brown mostly gray, silver and darker gray fleeces that I also am going to put in some products that are the fleece portions from those fleeces too. So that'll be coming once my final exams are graded, which should be soon.
Yeah.
I'm almost done.
Yes. That's important to get that done.
Yeah.
I have one last little thing is that and this is kind of silly, but I've become one of those dog owners that I had Enzo's Christmas portrait taken.
Oh, cool.
And They're not like I thought. They didn't turn out exactly as I expected. But what is nice is this was at the trainer set this up. She sets up a photo air booth for the dogs. And what's really nice is because Ben, I always do that all the time, because Enzo is black. He's hard to photograph because he's so dark. And so it's nice to be in this photo booth where the lighting is better. But some of the pictures, and I'll have to post them. I'm not quite sure if I should post. I think there's about 20 pictures. I think that's too many to post in the show notes. I will post some of them because there's one that he looks. You know how, Kelly, you know your dog, and people might look at your dog and say, "Oh, your dog looks fine," but you can tell by your dog's expression that he's like, "What have you done to me?
Yes.
Why am I?" You can tell. And so there's one where he has that look on his face. The lighting was really nice, but the background was just some fairy lights, Christmas tree lights behind a white screen. And then they had some white branches that sort of in front of that screen. And when they line him up, a lot of the pictures, he's got a branch coming out of his head. And that's all I can see is this branch coming out of his head. So they are not terrific, but they are pretty funny, though, because I can tell by the look on his face that he's not really having fun.
Right.
So it's kind of amusing. Sort of like when you take children to sit on Santa's lap.
Yes.
Some of the best ones are the ones where they're just screaming, crying. Those are the funniest. So anyway, I will post some of those in the show notes so people can see some of these pictures because they are pretty funny. So, okay. We will talk in 2 weeks.
Yes, it'll be right after Christmas, before New Year's.
Yes.
Wow.
So have a good holiday.
Thank you. You too.
We'll talk before that, but we also wish Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Happy Hanukkah. I guess that's happening now too.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All righty. Till next time. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2ewesfiberadventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 Ewes
doing our part for World Fleece.